You're killing his attraction right now, and you have no idea you're doing it. Not because you're too needy, not because you're too demanding, not because you're doing anything that feels wrong to you. You're doing things that feel like love, like care, like being a good partner. But to him, to his nervous system, to the part of his brain that decides whether he's drawn to you or pulling away, these things are slowly draining every ounce of desire he once had. And the worst part, you won't see it happening until it's too late. Until he's distant, until he's checked out, until he tells you he doesn't know why, but something just doesn't feel right anymore. Here's what no one tells you. The things that push men away aren't the things we've been warned about. They're not the obvious mistakes. They're the subtle behaviors, the everyday patterns that seem harmless, even loving, but create an invisible wall between you. And once that wall goes up, no amount of trying harder will tear it down. In fact, trying harder only makes it worse. So if you've ever felt a man pulling away and couldn't understand why, if you've ever had someone lose interest and you were left confused because you thought you were doing everything right, this is for you, because I'm about to show you the 7 things that quietly kill a man's interest, that make him feel suffocated without being able to name it, that turn his attraction into obligation. And once you see these, you'll never make these mistakes again. Let's start with the first one, and this might be the hardest truth you hear today. Number 1, always being available. This sounds backwards, doesn't it? You'd think being available, being there for him whenever he needs you, showing him you're reliable and present, that would make him value you more. But here's what actually happens. When you're always available, when he never has to wonder if you'll be there, when there's never a moment where he thinks, will she pick up? Will she have time for me? Will she be free? Something in his brain shuts off. Not his love for you, not his care, his pursuit, instinct. Let me explain. Men are wired to move toward what feels slightly out of reach. Not completely unavailable, not playing hard to get in some fake way, but genuinely living a life that doesn't revolve around his schedule. When you drop everything, every time he calls, when you rearrange your plans to fit his, when your calendar has holes in it just in case he wants to see you, you're training his subconscious to categorize you as guaranteed. And guaranteed doesn't create longing. It creates comfort, yes, but not desire. Not the kind of pull that keeps a man invested. Think about it. When does he think about you the most? When you're busy, when you can't answer right away, when you have something going on and he has to wait for your attention. That's not a game. That's human psychology. We value what we have to work for, what we have to earn, what doesn't come automatically. So when you're always there, always ready, always waiting, you remove the tension. And tension is what keeps attraction alive. Here's what happens in his mind. At first, he loves it. He loves that you're so into him, that you make time, that he doesn't have to chase. It feels easy. It feels good. But slowly, without him even realizing it, his brain stops working to keep your attention. He stops planning thoughtful dates because a last-minute text works just fine. He stops making effort because effort isn't required. And eventually, that ease turns into taking you for granted. Not because he's a bad person, but because you've made yourself so available that his brain no longer registers you as something he could lose. The women who keep men interested, they have lives. Real lives. Not performed busyness, not fake unavailability, but genuine priorities that don't shift every time he reaches out. They have friends they won't cancel on. They have hobbies they're committed to. They have goals that matter more than being someone's always available option. And when a man encounters that, when he realizes your time isn't automatically his, something shifts. He starts valuing the time he does get. He starts planning ahead. He starts showing up better because he knows if he doesn't, you're not going to be sitting around waiting. Number 2, making him your entire emotional world. This is where so many women lose men without understanding why. You start depending on him for your happiness, for your sense of security, for your emotional stability, and it feels natural, right? When you care about someone, when you're building something with them, of course they become important to your emotional life. But there's a difference between someone being important and someone being everything. And when you cross that line, when he becomes the center of your emotional universe, you stop being the woman he fell for. Here's what I mean. When your mood depends entirely on his mood, when your day is good or bad based on whether he texted you, when your happiness rises and falls with his attention, you're no longer a partner. You're a dependent. And men don't stay attracted to dependence. They stay attracted to women who have their own emotional foundation, who bring their own light to the relationship instead of waiting for him to turn the lights on for them. This happens slowly. It starts innocent. You care, so you check in. You want to talk to him about your day. You want his opinion on things. You start running more and more of your thoughts and feelings through him. And without realizing it, you've made him responsible for your emotional state. Now, every time he's stressed, you're stressed. Every time he needs space, you feel rejected. Every time he's quiet, you think something's wrong. And that pressure, that constant need for him to regulate your emotions, it's exhausting. Not in a way he'll tell you about, but in a way he'll feel pulling him away from you. Here's the truth men won't say out loud. They want to be important to you, but they don't want to be everything. They want to add to your life, not become your entire reason for living. Because when they're your everything, when your emotional survival depends on them, it stops feeling like love and starts feeling like drowning. Like they can't have a bad day without worrying about your bad day. Can't need space without you falling apart. Can't just exist without managing your feelings about their existence. The women men stay obsessed with, they have emotional lives outside the relationship, they have friends they process with, they have outlets for stress that don't involve him. They have sources of joy that exist independently. So when they're with him, they're bringing fullness, not emptiness, looking to be filled. They're sharing happiness, not desperately seeking it. And that energy, that self-contained emotional stability, it's magnetic. Number 3, constant reassurance seeking. Do you love me? Are we okay? Are you sure everything's fine? Where is this going? Do you still feel the same way? If these questions are on repeat in your relationship, if you're constantly checking in on his feelings, constantly needing confirmation that he's still invested, you're creating the exact doubt you're trying to prevent. Because every time you ask for reassurance, every time you need him to prove his feelings, you're telling his subconscious that you don't believe him. Here's how this works. When a man tells you he cares, when he shows up, when he's spending time with you, his brain registers that as proof of his investment. He's doing the things. To him, that's the answer. But when you keep asking, when you keep needing more confirmation despite his actions, it creates a strange effect. He starts thinking, if nothing I do is enough to make her feel secure, maybe I'm not enough, or maybe this isn't working. And that thought, that seed of doubt, it grows every time you seek reassurance. The thing is, reassurance seeking feels like it should bring you closer. It feels like communication, like being vulnerable, like making sure you're on the same page. But what it actually does is reveal your insecurity. And insecurity, constant insecurity that needs to be managed, is not attractive. It's not that men want you to never have doubts. It's that they want you to have enough confidence in yourself and in what you see in front of you that you're not constantly looking for them to fix your anxiety. The women who keep men invested, they trust the evidence in front of them. If he's showing up, if he's making effort, if his actions demonstrate care, they believe it. They don't need constant verbal confirmation because they're reading the reality of the situation. And that confidence, that ability to trust what's real instead of constantly questioning it, it lets the relationship breathe. It lets him feel believed, trusted, secure, that his efforts actually mean something to you. Number 4, over-functioning in the relationship. You're doing too much. You're planning everything. You're checking in on him. You're making sure the relationship runs smoothly. You're initiating most of the conversations, most of the dates, most of the effort, and it feels like you're being a good partner, like you're investing, like you're showing him how much you care. But what you're actually doing is making it too easy for him to coast. You're removing his need to put in effort because you're putting in enough for both of you. Here's what happens when you overfunction. You become the manager of the relationship, you're tracking emotional temperature, you're noticing when things feel off and addressing it. You're the one making plans, because if you don't, nothing happens. You're carrying the weight of keeping things alive. And at first, he might appreciate it. But appreciation isn't the same as investment. And the more you do, the less he has to do. The less he has to do, the less invested he becomes. Because investment doesn't come from receiving, it comes from giving. Let me explain that. When someone puts effort into something, when they plan, when they invest time and energy, when they work for something, their brain increases its valuation of that thing. This is basic psychology. We value what we work for, we become attached to what we invest in. So when you're doing all the work, when you're the one always showing up, always planning, always making sure things are good, he's not investing, he's receiving. And receiving doesn't create attachment, it creates passivity. The women men stay crazy about, they let men work for it. Not in some manipulative way, but by simply not doing everything. They don't plan every date. They don't always initiate. They don't manage his feelings or the relationship's health all by themselves. They create space for him to step up. And when he doesn't, they notice. They don't fill the gap immediately. They let the gap exist. Because that gap, that space where effort should be, that's where you find out if he's actually willing to invest or if he's just been coasting on your investment this whole time. Number 5. ignoring your own boundaries. Every time you let something slide that bothers you, every time you don't speak up when something doesn't feel right, every time you accept behavior you don't actually accept just to keep the peace, you're teaching him how to treat you. And you're teaching him that your boundaries are negotiable, that your needs are flexible, that your standards will bend as long as he wants them to. And once a man learns that, once he realizes you won't actually hold a line, his respect for you drops. Not consciously, not in a way he'd admit, but deep in his subconscious where attraction lives. Here's the thing about boundaries. They're not about controlling him, they're about protecting yourself. They're about saying, this is what I need to feel good in a relationship. And if you can't meet that, then this isn't the right fit. But so many women are afraid to set boundaries because they think it'll push him away. They think if they ask for too much, if they're too demanding, he'll leave. So they shrink, they accept less, they let things go, and in doing so, they guarantee the exact outcome they're trying to avoid. Because here's what happens when you have no boundaries. He learns he can do the bare minimum and you'll stay. He learns your needs aren't priorities. He learns that keeping you is easy because you don't require much. And once that's established, once he knows you'll tolerate whatever he gives, why would he give more? The answer is he won't. Not because he's terrible, but because you've set the standard, and the standard is low. The women men respect, the women men work to keep, they have clear boundaries, they know what they need, they communicate it without apology. And when those needs aren't met, they don't threaten, they don't nag, they just pull back. They create distance, they reduce investment. Not to punish him, but because they genuinely won't accept less than what they deserve. And that self-respect, that unwillingness to compromise on core needs, it forces him to decide. Step up or step out. Number 6, making his life your life. You stopped seeing your friends as much. Your hobbies fell away, your goals got put on hold, your interests shifted to match his, and it happened gradually. So gradually you didn't notice you were disappearing. You thought you were building a life together. But what you actually did was absorb into his life. You became an extension of him instead of remaining a whole person he gets to be with. And that shift, that loss of your separate identity, it kills his attraction faster than almost anything else. Here's why. The woman he was attracted to, the one he chose, she had her own thing going on. She had friends, she had passions, she had a life that was full and interesting. That's part of what drew him in. You weren't just sitting around waiting for someone to give you purpose. You had purpose. And he got to be part of it. But when you make him your entire life, when everything revolves around him, you become someone different, someone smaller, someone whose entire existence is wrapped up in his. And men don't stay attracted to that, not because they're selfish, but because there's nothing to be attracted to. When you have no life outside of him, what is there to be interested in? What stories do you bring? What energy do you add? You become an echo of him instead of a complement to him. And echoes get tuned out. The women men stay obsessed with, they keep their lives. They have Tuesday night dinners with friends that are non-negotiable. They have creative projects they're working on. They have career goals they're actively pursuing. They have identities that exist completely separate from the relationship. So when they're with him, they're bringing new energy, new stories, new experiences. They're not just consuming his life, they're adding to both lives by having their own. Number 7, trying to force a feeling. You feel it slipping. You feel him pulling away. You feel the energy changing, and your instinct is to fight it, to fix it, to do more, to love harder, to prove your worth, to convince him of what you have. But here's the brutal truth. The moment you start trying to force someone to feel something, you've already lost. Because feelings don't respond to effort. They respond to energy. And desperation, no matter how much love is behind it, it repels. When you sense him losing interest, and you respond by trying harder, by being sweeter, by doing more, by making yourself more available, by seeking more reassurance, by clinging tighter, you're confirming his pullback. You're proving to him that yes, something is off. Because the woman he was attracted to, she wouldn't do this. She wouldn't chase. She wouldn't beg for feelings. She wouldn't try to convince someone to want her. She'd notice the shift and she'd step back. She'd give space. She'd let him feel her absence instead of suffocating him with her presence. Here's what happens when you try to force a feeling. He feels the pressure. He feels your anxiety. He feels your need for him to feel something he's not feeling or not feeling as strongly. And that pressure, it makes whatever he was feeling shrink even more. Because now being with you isn't just about being with you. It's about managing your emotions about his emotions. The women men come back to, the ones who haunt them, they're the ones who didn't fight the fade. They noticed it. They felt it. And instead of grasping, they released. They stepped back. They gave space. They stopped trying to force something to be what it wasn't. And that ability to let go, that strength to not chase what's leaving, it does something to a man's psychology. Suddenly, you're not desperate. You're not needy. You're not trying to hold on to him. You're willing to walk away. And walking away is infinitely more powerful than chasing. By now, you understand something most women never figure out. You see how the things that feel like love, like care, like being a good partner, can actually be the exact things pushing him away. Always being available, making him your emotional world, constantly seeking reassurance, over-functioning, ignoring boundaries, losing yourself, trying to force feelings. These aren't love, they're fear. Fear of losing him, fear of not being enough, fear that if you don't do all of this, he'll leave. But here's the truth. If you have to do all of this to keep him, you don't really have him. You have a version of him that only exists because you're working overtime to maintain it. And the second you stop, the second you let go, even a little, it falls apart because it was never real. It was constructed from your effort, not his genuine desire to be with you. The woman men can't forget, the one they regret losing, she doesn't do any of these things. Not because she's playing games, not because she read some strategy, but because she values herself too much. She knows her time is valuable, so she has a life. She knows her emotional health matters, so she doesn't make him responsible for it. She knows her needs are important, so she sets boundaries. She knows her identity matters, so she keeps it. And she knows her dignity is non-negotiable, so she won't force someone to want her. That version of you, the one who knows all of this and lives it, that's the version that doesn't lose men. That's the version men work to keep. That's the version that doesn't have to worry about these 7 things because she's too busy being someone worth choosing to be worried about being chosen. So stop doing these things. Not to manipulate him into staying, not as some tactic to get his interest back, but because you deserve better than a relationship where you're shrinking yourself, abandoning your life, and performing for someone's attention. You deserve someone who values your time, who wants to invest in you, who respects your boundaries, who loves you as a whole person, not as a reflection of themselves. And if stopping these things means he loses interest completely, good. Because that means he was never interested in the real you anyway. He was interested in what you were willing to do for him. And that's not love, that's convenience. The right person won't lose interest when you have boundaries, when you have a life, when you have needs. The right person will be drawn to those things because they signal self-respect. And self-respect is the most attractive thing you can carry. So stop trying so hard to be chosen. Start being someone who knows she's worth choosing. And trust me, that shift, that change in how you show up, it won't just change how he sees you, it will change how you see yourself. And that's worth more than any relationship that requires you to be smaller, quieter, or less than who you actually are.